Just wanted to remind us that due to inclement weather, church tomorrow is canceled. Get your ass out the camera.
Welcome. We're all victims of the algorithm.
I don't know what this world is coming to.
As always, gotta make sure I'm fresh. Oh, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Yes, we are back. Welcome to the Symphony of Thoughts podcast. Now, this is a podcast about nothing in particular. Just the ramblings of an ADHD black man trying to survive in America. I need y'all to make sure to subscribe to the podcast. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. And engage with me on social media. It's cold out here in these streets. I need y'all conversation to warm me up. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. Just search Trey_not young. Once again, that's TRAE_not young. And if that's too much to remember, I'm on Linktree. Just look up Linktree Symphony of Thoughts, and you can find all of the links over there. And you can also find the link to my brand new podcast with my main man Los called Real Talk and Real Talk. Once again, that's REEL Talk and REAL Talk, as we give y'all black and brown perspectives, takes on the silver screen. We just recently, actually, we're 3 episodes in. We did a pilot episode, just kind of introducing ourselves to the world and letting them know, you know, the types of movies and TV shows that we're into. Then we did the deep dive into obsession.
If you're rejected by a woman, fucking let it out, man. Just be, you know, and then you know what's going to happen is in about 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to be over it. You know, it's not the end of your fucking world. It might be the end of the world for you now, today, because this is all you wanted, because you were painting this fucking picture of this, you know, Dany and Jon Snow Disney ending. You know what I mean? That's just not realistically shouldn't happen.
Exactly.
You know, so fucking get for those dudes that like, you know, if y'all fiending for a certain girl and she's not feeling it, like just move on, bro.
Just move on.
Like,
it's okay.
All you're doing right now is just slowly building resentment towards her.
And something
now,
negative is going to come out of that in the end.
So move on.
Yeah.
Either cut it out, cut your feelings, stop it. If she by a certain point hasn't shown that that's reciprocated, like just move on, man. You're gonna get over it. It's gonna be okay. Like
there are 7 billion people in this world. Like, yeah, move on.
One of them is you, by the way.
Yep.
One of the 7 billion people is you. You could be happy with yourself.
Yes. Love yourself. We just recently did a deep dive into the long walk. Man, that's a wrap on episode 1. Oh, snap. Los, you reading already? What you reading, man?
Oh, shit. Sorry, dude. It's just an old book that I found laying around. But, dude, you know, it's funny. This is it gave me an idea.
What was that?
Maybe next time when we do our next episode, we should record it while walking.
While walking?
Yeah.
Like on a treadmill, or what do you mean?
No, like I was thinking, you know, I think maybe we could find like a nice countryside somewhere. You know, maybe on a road that has like farms on each side, going to towns that look like they haven't been touched since the 50s.
So what, we're gonna be walking down the street like with selfie sticks or something?
No. I was thinking maybe we have like somebody like in a Jeep in front of us, like recording us as we walk and talk.
Now, how long exactly will we be walking for?
Oh, hold on.
Uh-oh.
Until there's only one of us left.
What the fuck? That'll be out on Wednesday. And just taking these movies and unpacking them again, like I said, from a black and brown perspective. You know, all of us kind of live in different universes and we live in different realities. And, you know, some people see things one way, others see it another way. And it's good for us to have these open dialogues about life and, you know, how we view the world. And again, unpack some of these very good and very interesting movies and what social themes that they're trying to get across to us. And then also, like I said, again, how that impacts us within the black and brown communities. So real talk and real talk, follow us. Check us out. We're also on all of the social media pages too, from TikTok to Instagram. We'll probably eventually have a Twitter. I mean, it's a cesspool over there right now, but we'll eventually get the podcast over there. We're also on Threads. So fuck with us on Threads too. If y'all don't do Twitter, you do Threads. We're over there too. But as always, you know, this is a game of algorithms. And in order for us, you know, lonely small content creators to get out there to the world and have more and more strangers engage with us to, you know, build these communities and these platforms, we need you, the listener, to engage with us on social media. So as always, fuck with us, chat with us, do all them shits, and fuck it, let's get into the show. Come take this journey with me.
The ironic thing about life is that you are a different person to everyone you meet. To some, you're quiet. To others, you never stop talking. Some remember you for your kindness, others for the time you walked away. You are a villain in someone's story, a hero in another's. And to most, you're just a passing thought, a name they once knew. You don't exist as one person, but as countless versions of yourself, shaped by fleeting moments and personal perceptions. And here's what's unsettling. You will never truly know yourself the way others do. You will never hear your own laughter the way someone else does. You will never see the way your absence lingers in a room you used to fill. To yourself, you are just you. But in reality, you are 1,000 different stories, none of which you will ever get to read.
I'm a fan of Big Brother, the CBS reality TV show. And I've been a fan of Big Brother for about 10 years now. It currently is in its 28th season, and I was extremely late to the party. For those who don't know what Big Brother is, it's essentially a reality TV show where you take a group of strangers, they're called house guests, and they live together in this custom built house that is completely isolated from the rest of the outside world. Like, they don't have cell phones, they don't have computers to get on the internet, they don't have televisions. It's just a bunch of strangers locked inside of a house together, forced to build community amongst one another. Now, it's named after the all-seeing figure in George Orwell's novel 1984 that came out in like 1949, where the guy was kind of predicting where society was going to go and how, you know, authoritarian governments will eventually watch our every move. And that's essentially where the name came from, because the contestants inside of this custom house are being monitored 24/7 by 94 hidden cameras, and they all have microphones. If they try to take the microphone off or try to muffle it as they're talking, the production team will say something over the loudspeaker to them to, hey, you know, you got to speak into the mic. We got to see and hear every single thing that you do. The only place that there are not necessarily cameras is inside of the shower or inside of the toilet stall, but there are cameras inside of the bathroom. So often people who take showers, they'll take showers and then they'll kind of change inside of the actual shower before they step back out to not be nude on live TV. Now, they have a competition, and basically each week the players are competing to become HOH, which is the head of household. And whoever becomes head of household for that week, they are safe to not get eliminated that week. And they have the power to nominate up to 3 house guests for eviction. Then after that, and typically that happens on like a Sunday. And then come Wednesday, there's a power of veto competition where select players are picked to compete in the competition. Whoever wins that competition, they get the power of veto, which they could use to pull a nominee off of the eviction block. If you're somebody who was on the eviction block, you can pull yourself off of it. And it then, forces that HOH to then put up another house guest for eviction. Then on Thursdays, and typically the power of veto competition happens on Wednesday. Then come Thursday, this is the first time the show is technically live during the week, because all the 24/7 cameras, you have to go on Paramount Plus to watch it, 24 hours a day. I'm not that big of a fan. I don't do any of that shit. But they have the tape show that comes on Sunday. They have the tape show that comes on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, they will show a taped recap of what happened since the, power of veto situation. But then on Thursday, they have the live Big Brother, they have the live blockbuster competition, and then they have a live vote. And whoever gets voted out, they are then eliminated, evicted from the game. And essentially, all of these people are competing for a chance to win the grand cash prize of $750,000. Which is just under $1 million. So this is life-changing money. Now, as a people watcher, Big Brother caught my attention. Is interesting because partially it's a human game of chess. The way different people, click up with one another and devise social strategies and other types of strategies to get along further in the game. And, it's a very cerebral game that they're playing with one another. And the other part with me being a people watcher, the reason why I like the show is it's kind of like the experiment that people do with rats when they put rats inside of a maze. You take a bunch of humans who have no connection to the outside world. They're strangers. They don't know one another. And you lock them in this house with no distractions and force them to interact with one another. And over time, you see the real them come to light. And CBS tends to look for a wide variety of people because, of course, they're looking to make good TV. They want to ensure there's some chaos happening. So, they put some clashing personalities in there. And this season, there were 3 people in particular that upon the very beginning of the show, episode 1, when they do the player introductions and they do the little background of the different people who are going to be on the show that season, there were a couple of particular caricatures that we see in today's world that showed up on the show that I want to do a deep dive into because they really stood out like a sore thumb to me. And all the stereotypes that I kind of threw on these people seem to come to light is true. So I kind of nailed it in my people watching and saying, hey, those 3 people kind of have some assumptions about their character. Now, the 3 people that I'm talking about for anybody who's watched this season of Big Brother is the original 3 members of the Red Corner Alliance, that being Haley, Kamu, and Chuck. Now, Chuck is a 27-year-old Nigerian cowboy from Dallas, Texas. He stated that he stands out in Nigerian culture because he has embodied the American from the South lifestyle, and you'll often see him with cowboy hats and boots, and they were showing him in the outside world going to country bars and doing line dancing and all that. Then Camus stood out to me. He's a 32-year-old MMA fighter who's from Arizona, and I'm pretty sure I saw him at least one of his fights in the UFC. He looked familiar, and then of course back when I used to watch the UFC, I would always keep an eye out for hometown people from Arizona and root for them. And then the third person was Haley, who's a 28-year-old D1 athlete / farmer's girl from Missouri. Now, I saw each one of them during the introductions when they do the presentation of them, learning that they're going to be part of Big Brother and showing them in their regular environment around their friends and family. And I took a look at all three of those people and I said, whoa, all these people look like caricatures of modern day young conservatives. When you look at Chuck, Chuck is the black man who appears to want to appear to be safe as possible to white people by adopting their culture. I really hate to hit him with the he talks white trope because that's like riddled in, racist ideology that, oh, he speaks proper. But it's not that he speaks proper. He has this very weird accent where it seems like he's really trying to put on like this American accent. And during the player introductions, at one point you hear his Nigerian mom talking, and she has a very thick Nigerian accent. And so his accent just stands out that it really differs from the other family members that you heard speak during his player introduction. And then with Kamu, we see the modern day gym/MMA culture guy. You have these meatheads who they typically get into mixed martial arts as a way to find discipline, and it's kind of like mixed martial arts is kind of turned into like this generation's like join the military. That used to be the thing back in the day, is like, oh, this kid gets into a lot of, trouble. We're going to send him off to boarding school, or we're going to send him out to the military so he can get his act together. And that's kind of what mixed martial arts is turned into for this younger generation. You see a lot of these guys with troubled backgrounds, from fucking Conor McGregor to John Jones. And while doing my research, I didn't necessarily see anything with Kamu of any like legal trouble that he's gotten into. But again, this whole Christian gym bros is something that we're starting to see with a lot of the young conservative circles nowadays. And a lot of it, honestly, is to blame Joe Rogan. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kamu is a big fan of Joe Rogan and his podcast. And then there's Haley. And I really hate to start here, but when I first saw her, I had a very hard time figuring out if she was in her 20s or if she was in her 40s. Now, that's not to say that she's unattractive. I think she's attractive. And actually, I hate myself for how attractive that I think that she is. She's probably one of the top 3 attractive, women in the show, but she doesn't look like a 20-year-old. And unfortunately, that is the thing with white people and with white women in general. When you have all that anger in your heart, it ages you. I'm sorry. Now, it like was basically fucking week 1 where the 3 of them clicked up and they formed an alliance. And like I said, I was not surprised because I picked them out of the lineup. Like, oh, those are probably the MAGA conservatives. And yeah, they gravitated right towards each other. Now, I forgot what week they're in of the show, but I think they're on like episode 20 because, again, the show comes on 3 to 4 times a week. Like a lot of episodes come out. It's a lot of content that you consume as a Big Brother fan, and you really have to invest multiple days out of the week to be able to keep up with what's going on the show. But Chuck was eliminated last week, and it was interesting because even though Kamu, who's one of his best buds, had won the power of veto that week, he could have kept Chuck and Haley, who both were on the eviction block. He could have kept one of them safe, but he decided not to use the power of veto because he didn't want to rock the vote with the person who was currently in power, Lala, a black woman that's on the show. And he didn't want to rock the boat, and then he also kind of wanted to separate himself from the alliance of those 3 people, the red corner, and so he chose to not use the power of veto. Chuck and Haley were obviously devastated because they were like, this is a close ally, and that's part of the point of having a alliance, is when you run into these sticky situations, you got other people to watch your back. And it was interesting because Chuck got eliminated, and then post eviction, they'll go out, they leave the house, and the house has like this double door that takes you right to a live studio audience with the host, Julie, what's her name? Julie Chan Moonves. And she interviews them on the spot, you know, about their game and what happened and how they got eliminated. And a lot of times they'll play clips of pre-recorded messages from all the other people in case, you know, in case this person gets, you know, evicted. You know, what are your final thoughts that you want to say to them? And they played some clips of different, you know, people saying what they had to say. And it was interesting because, again, like I said, Camus was his boy from day one. Camus did not protect him, and ultimately that led to Chuck being eliminated. But during the post-eviction interview, Chuck only had bad things to say about two people on the show, and that was Taylor and Lala, who happen to be the only Black women that are on the show. Now, people were pissed off at Chuck, and if you follow it, you know, social media, people talking on social media and, you know, tweeting in real time as they're watching the show, as they're watching the live cameras, a lot of people pointed out that, like, throughout the season, even though Chuck, Taylor, and Lala didn't necessarily have an alliance between each other, Taylor and Lala were actively trying to look out for him and give him valid game advice. And Chuck didn't give a fuck. Any advice that he got from those two women went in one ear and out the other. Like, for whatever reason, he did not want to hear shit from these two Black women. And again, I wasn't surprised because he fits the description. Now, moving over to Haley. Haley faced backlash on social media from some stuff that happened not on the recorded show that comes out, but watching the live feeds. There's a guy named Drew on there who has a crush on this girl, this white girl, Melody. And Melody is also from Phoenix, Arizona, so shouts out to her. But Haley was having a conversation with Drew, and she was just discussing the type of women that he likes. And Haley had made mention that while Melody had the face and the body, she stated that she talks like ghetto, which is interesting because, again, I don't watch the live feeds, but I watch the weekly show, and Melody is prominently featured on the show and during her confessions. And ghetto has never crossed my mind in any of the times that Melody has talked. So I'm not sure exactly what Haley means about that. Then there was another time where there was a conversation that Haley was having talking about Taylor and Lala, again, the only two Black women, and both these Black women have blonde hair on the show. Both of them have like blonde braids, and Haley described both of their hair as being blonde, crinkly, and disgusting, which is kind of rooted in microaggressions and racism. Now, Haley last week had won HOH, and part of the ceremony of winning HOH is you get your own room, and when you get your own room, you'll get a letter that was written to you by one of your loved ones. It's typically tradition for the HOH person to, you know, read the letter that they got from their family to the people, because they all go into the HOH room to kind of celebrate with the person. Even if they don't like them, they go up there to celebrate with the person. And then, you know, you get to hear these heartfelt letters coming from home. And they also get like these gift baskets with snacks that they like. You know, they get personal snacks and all that. And Haley's a health nut, and when she had won, they had all came back into the house from the competition, and Taylor had cracked some joke about how she didn't want any of Haley's sugar-free snacks. And Haley heard it, and Haley took it very personal and got pissed off. And when it was time for her to go upstairs and all of them to come up there for them to show off the HOH room, instead of reading her letter that she got from her family back home, she proceeded to warn everybody in the house that if you didn't like her, you didn't need to be in her room, and you definitely didn't have permission to eat any of her snacks. And like it was clearly a a subliminal shot at Taylor. And again, like I said, it was very odd because typically the HOH thing, even if it's, people masking and putting on, it's typically an emotional ceremony of like, oh, my mother wrote me this letter, how much she misses me and she hopes I win. And a lot of times the HOH will cry as they're reading it and how they miss their family. But no, Haley took that moment to talk shit and tell the people, essentially, hey, I'm in charge and this is what the fuck I'm gonna do. Now, during that week, she did end up putting Taylor up for eviction, and Taylor had went up there to talk to her about, hey, why was I the one that got picked? And Haley proceeded to tell her that it was due to a week before Haley won her HOH. There was a guy by the name of Jason who used to be he's a drag queen and he's been on RuPaul's Drag Race show. And Jason kind of crashed the fuck out, leading to his eviction, and that was part of the reason why a bunch of people, voted him out. But he decided to try to have like a viral moment, and so in the middle of the night, he took a teapot, and then he was going around banging the teapot, being all loud and all that to get back at Camus, who he was beefing with at the time. And Haley was very annoyed during the situation. She was very pissed off at him going around making all that noise, and at the time, Taylor had laughed about the situation, but then Angela laughed. There was a couple other people in the house that laughed because, Jason was being over the top. But Haley took it personal again that Taylor laughed at her. And she said that was the reason why, she put her up for eviction. And then so Taylor, Haley, and Angela are all in the HOH together. And then Taylor proceeded to try to explain like, oh, it was several people that laughed at you, like including Angela that's, sitting right next to you right now. Like, I'm not the only one that was laughing at you. But as she started trying to say that, like Haley cut her off and put her hand up. It was like, And then Taylor was like, no, like you need to chill. Like, don't, hush me, like chill with all that. And again, like I said, comes off as a microaggression from Haley to a black woman. Now, Lala won HOH last week, and ultimately she was the one who nominated and ultimately got Chuck eliminated. But during that same week, like I had said earlier, she had put Haley up for eviction as well. And she said that, because quite frankly, outside of Haley's like immediate circle of close allies, a lot of people don't get along with Haley, including Melody. A lot of people can't stand Haley because she's very passive aggressive and very much so like a victim. She was, talking about how, oh my God, she's had it the hardest. More, her time in Big Brother house has been harder than anybody else in the house. And Melody and Mallory, who are friends, were in the confessional, and they were like, what the fuck does this bitch mean? Like, literally, she, at that point, that was the first time she had been up on the block, and Mallory has been on the block multiple times, and Melody and several people have been on the block and had to fight their way to continue to stay in the show. But Haley had been on the right side of the house, so this was the first time that she was actually up for eviction and had to fight for her place to stay in the show. And that was part of the reason why, like, Lala was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna put Haley up because a lot of people in the house don't like her, and that's an easy way to not get blood on your hands. You don't want to put somebody up that a lot of people like, because then people get upset, and then if they become in power, they'll come after you because you have blood on your hands. But if you put somebody up there that can't nobody stand, you don't get blood on your hands. And a lot of people like, hey, thank you for getting that motherfucker out. But Haley took it personal, and she ended up winning the blockbuster, pulling herself off. And like I said, Chuck got eliminated. And then Haley proceeded to argue with Lala after that, calling her a bully. And her and, Lala was trying to have a conversation with her, and Haley just, oh no, you're a bully. You just be bullying people, and you was bullying me. And that was the whole thing, was you just wanted to embarrass and bully me. And it is just maddening watching this possible conservative MAGA woman take out all these microaggressions on these black women and continue to play victim. Like, their life has been harder than everyone else's. Now, the internet doing their investigative journalism, as always, found Haley's dad, and they found a post on social media where he was commenting on something on Facebook, and he had said, responding to this woman, like I said earlier, if you look a little shallower, most of the hate comes from liberals, queers, and cat ladies. Not really good demographics to be a part of. And so it's kind of not surprised that Haley is who she is if that's how her father is. As we always say, a lot of people are like, oh, we can't wait till the old baby boomers pass away because then racism in. No, they taught their children racism. Now on to Camus. Again, like I said, the internet doing their investigating. First things first, Camus came off bigoted in a conversation that he was having about Jason, who, like I said, was the RuPaul Drag Race performer Selena, and Camus made some comments about criticizing men wearing feminine clothes and how, he has a problem with that because, men need to be men like back in the day. And then, unfortunately, they also found a clip on his Instagram from 7 months ago where he made a George Floyd joke.
People cheering. He's like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Bro thinks he's George Floyd.
Yeah, he's not beating those allegations. I have said often that like the George Floyd situation was a major turning point in American race relations. And I think it comes down to there were a lot of conservatives and racists who did not understand why people were so upset at the murder of George Floyd. Even so much so going to the fact that Charlie Kirk made it his mission to talk shit about George Floyd every time that he could and say that his death had nothing to do with a knee on the throat and how it was a fentanyl overdose. And literally Charlie Kirk, for any of y'all who, this is y'all Martin Luther King, Charlie Kirk also bullied George Floyd's daughter multiple times and doxed her. And every year, on the anniversary of George Floyd's death, he'd be like, George Floyd is X amount of years fentanyl drug free, like making all these racist comments about, George Floyd being this, that, and the third. But like I said, it was a pivotal moment in race relations because George Floyd, that situation happened, and then a bunch of black people and then a bunch of allies got very upset at the situation, and people started marching and protesting. Then information came out, oh well, he had a counterfeit bill, so he was a criminal and he has a criminal background. And then people were like, so he shouldn't have got murdered. And that's where like the split happened. And in my opinion, it's because a lot of racist people already view black people as less than the rest of their society. So that's part of the reason why anytime, something happens to a black person, they immediately, black on black violence, like they view black people as less than violent, angry, aggressive people. And, the good ones are just, one of the good apples in a rotten bunch. But then when it came out that George Floyd was a criminal, their view of him dropped even lower, where they saw no reason why we should care that this man died, because not only is he black, he's a criminal. But again, black people and black allies were like, no, this regardless of any of the rest of those fucking things that they used to keep us separate, that was a human that got murdered in the streets by a fucking cop as he cried out to his mother in his last breaths. And like all we see is, oh shit, this American got murdered by the police who are supposed to be authority figures to protect us. And all y'all saw was someone who doesn't look like you that is also a criminal deserve to die because he's scum of the earth. And that's where one of the big racial divides happen in America. And you could always honestly tell a person's politics and a person's subconscious feelings about Black people by how they talk about George Floyd. So Camus, Haley, and Chuck all proved to be who I thought they were when I was watching those initial player introductions. I stereotyped them as maggots, and they turned out to more than likely be that or in that circle of ideology, which is, I don't know, it's interesting and it's sad. But yeah, like I said, I'm a people watcher. Big Brother is a very interesting, cerebral game. And it's just always interesting to see as these different personality types are brought into one house, like who's going to connect with who's going to bump heads. And it's just as if Big Brother is like a social microcosm of American society.
This ain't Survivor, honey. This here Big Brother.
I'm feeling good, feeling alright tonight. I'm feeling good now. Yeah, it's all good in the neighborhood, homes. Yeah, Lil Rob.
Y'all ever heard that song? So that is Summer Nights featuring Lil Rob, and it came out in 2005. And at least out here in Arizona, like it was a hit, like nonstop on the radio. You would hear that Summer Nights record. As of course, living in Arizona, we have a very big Latino community, and so it made sense that Lil Rob and this banger of a song just grew the way it did, and you would hear it nonstop out here. But the reason why I bring up this song is I was doing my little delivery job and I had my music on shuffle and that song popped up, and it reminded me that that was the song that I initially started my journey of learning that I have synesthesia. Now, I've told this story, or I've talked about synesthesia on my previous podcast, but this is a brand new podcast with brand new listeners. So, I have this conversation with you all. So essentially what happened, and I'll explain what synesthesia is in a minute. Don't worry, y'all. But 2005, this song is playing nonstop on the radio, and I was dating this girl that I lived with at the time. And I remember we were in the car and she was driving, I was in the passenger seat. And since I was a kid, would listen to music, and especially music that has like electronic beats to it. Hip hop, and of course a lot of 80s pop music. I think that's the reason why I gravitated towards those two, genres of music so much. But ever since I was a kid, I would listen to music and I would see colors and sometimes see certain shapes with certain instrumentation. And it was something that, happens in my mind's eye. So, I kind of never really talked about it or never really questioned it. I just kind of assumed this happens with everyone. But that Summer Night song, kept coming on, and that that sound was a very vivid, like, it's hard to explain, but like one of the notes when it hits is kind of like it reverberates between like purple and pink, and then that second note is kind of like yellow and orange. It kind of vibrates between those, reverberates between those two colors. And the sound as it echoes, it's kind of like the shape of like half of a butterfly wing. And so like, it's very beautiful. And so like every time I would listen to that song, I would just think about just how beautiful that those two notes are. And it was very prominent. And so finally I'm in the car with, this girl that I've been dating for a few years at that point, and the song is on the radio, and I'm sitting there, and finally I'm like, man, fuck it. I may sound crazy, but I'm an ass. And I had asked her, I was like, do you see colors when you listen to music? And she looked at me like, nigga, what? Like, what the fuck is you talking about? Is this nigga high? Like, she was confused. She didn't get it. And I kind of left it at that. And then later on in life, I started doing research, and essentially synesthesia is a neurological condition where activating one sense causes an involuntary experience in another sense. So a person with synesthesia, in my case, I have, what is kind of called colored hearing, and music notes basically have a certain shape and color to it. There are other people who have like colored taste, and like certain sounds make certain flavors in their mouth. There was this book about synesthesia that I read where they interviewed a bunch of different people, and one of them that really stood out because it was like I couldn't imagine how difficult this person's life is, but colors produce certain emotions. And so it's not as simple as like red means anger and blue means sad. The colors vary for each person. Even me as a person with synesthesia, with colored hearing, somebody else with colored hearing could hear the same song that I hear, but see different shapes and, colors and all that. But there's a story in that book about this man who, when he sees certain colors, produce certain emotions, and like he cannot go like in a store and go down like an aisle that has like fabrics. You know how like you have the aisle for like the knitting and the whatever you call that, the home ec stuff that you do when you could knit stuff and make stuff. He can't go down an aisle like that because there's way too many different vibrant colors that stand out, and then he's overwhelmed with emotion walking down that aisle. And like I said, yeah, it's for some reason one sense triggers another sense in the brain of people with synesthesia. And apparently up to roughly 4% of people in the world experience this. And I'm fairly certain probably a lot of people haven't actually spoken about it or talked about it because, again, it's just something natural that's always been there. Unless you open up the dialogue and ask someone if they also experience this thing, a lot of people do not find out. Now, how I confirm, the colored hearing, because of course, kind of like I said, I may see some one way and somebody else with the same exact type of synesthesia as me may see something completely different. And so it's kind of like, how do we know all these people aren't fucking lying? Well, there's various tests that you can take depending on the type of synesthesia that you have. And I did the synesthesia battery test for colored hearing. And basically what this test does is it sends out these random audio cues, and they do actually repeat in random order. So it's like different frequencies, at different volumes, just a whole bunch of different randomness to the sounds. But then there are times when that tone may randomly play again, and unless you have a great memory and perfect pitch, you probably can't tell that that's a audio cue that you heard 3 minutes ago. But basically it plays these different sounds, and then you have one of those RGB color wheels where you then have to select the exact color and the exact shade of like, is it dark, is it light, is it vibrant, is it dull? You have to dial in exactly what color that you see. And essentially having a very high consistency score of certain tones always producing similar colors or whatnot, it kind of basically shows that it's real, because there's no way that you'd be able to guess within a percentage of a percent the same exact color shade on every single different tone. And so, yeah, so that was, when I took my test and determined that it was official that I had synesthesia. And like I said, there's a lot of people that have synesthesia. And actually, I've seen, even though I haven't seen Kanye West talk about synesthesia very much, there was one video where he was in a studio and he was describing a beat, and he was like visually describing the beat, and it was like, oh shit, that nigga got synesthesia. And then the same thing, Pharrell from the Neptunes, he was actually one of the people interviewed for that book, and he described his synesthesia and how, you see shapes and colors in music and how that led him to being a music producer and so on and so forth. But it is interesting because it is a neurological condition where, you know, people like me, it's a entertainment thing that I can get out of listening to electronic driven music. For other people, it's a little bit, you know, more devastating than that. But they still don't really have all the information on exactly why this is a thing. And there is a theory that all of us as babies are born with synesthesia because basically newborn brains have very dense, unpruned nerve connections between the sensory areas. And there's an assumption that maybe all of us are born with it, but then as our brain develops, it separates the senses. But for some reason, in 4% of the population, it actually overlaps and never completely separates. So, yeah, just wanted to give y'all a peek into, again, this ADHD man who just has all these weird things with his brain, and just everything in the world is just so different with me. I don't know. That's the reason why I'm special.
I want to kiss all my friends on the lips.
Why do you want to kiss them on the lips?
I think we should be able to kiss, make out, bite each other's lower lips, and have none of that be cheating.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good idea. I mean, I've always wanted to kiss one of my friends.
Really? What's his name?
Why'd you assume it was him? Friends can be women. It is a guy. I just wanted to...
Friends can be women, but there was something that, like, I don't know, like a light flashed through your eyes.
Yeah, his name is Kenny.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But would your girlfriend consider that inappropriate?
What might be helpful in your situation is a purge where they allow crime for like one day. But in this case, it's allowed for like platonic group sex for one day. So like a platonic orgy purge. Mm-hmm. Like a platorgy, if you will. Also, I just want to clarify, I don't have a girlfriend. I had a fiance, she left me, it doesn't matter.
Why'd she leave you?
She cheated on me.
Oh, do you know who she cheated with?
It was with Kenny, but regardless, it doesn't really matter. What I was gonna say was that
I think I watched a video about that.
There's a video of it?
There's a site dedicated to amateur videos of this nature exclusively from Staten Island.
Was the video called Casey and Kenny? Casey and Kenny.
Do this.
Do everything you possibly could do and more.
What the fuck? Turn it up.
Uh-oh. The algorithm gods didn't seem to like that last segment. I guess it was a little too positive. They want me to say something now that'll cause internet discourse and get people arguing in the comment section. I guess I gotta hit y'all with a hot take. Let me think about this for a second. Oh, I got one. The trans community is to the queer community what Black people are to American society. Thus, it's counterproductive for a white trans person to be racist. I'll let y'all marinate on that for a little bit. It'll make sense.
Everybody's got an opinion on like Jews, trans people, communities that are literally only like 1% of Americans or some shit like that.
Right. Except one of us control all the banks. And it's me,
it's
guys.
Not the Jews.
And it's me, guys. This entire time, Wells Fargo, that's been me.
Bro, we switch all the stereotypes for trans people and Jews. People start rapping about like my trans lawyer, my lawyer trans, so you know I beat the case, or niggas being like, I don't want Jews in my bathroom.
You ever had a girlfriend, man?
No, I don't do pussy.
I mean, what type of pussy you had that made you be like, I don't do it?
What kind of dick you ever had that made you say I don't do it?
First of all, I ain't never had no dick.
Okay then, exactly.
Right.
My point
Okay, we ain't even gonna get into that.
Exactly.
We ain't even gonna get into it. All I asked you was, I was just saying you had
You said, what kind of pussy have you had that made you don't
Because you said,
want
I don't do pussy. I said, well, what kind of...
Do you do dick?
No.
Okay then.
I'm just saying, try your little pussy out.
Try your little dick out.
No.
Okay
I don't gotta try that. Try your little pussy, you might have fun.
Exactly.
Okay. I ain't saying leave the dick alone. If you wanna do dick, do the dick. But I'm just saying, try your little pussy out.
Try your little dick.
No.
Okay. Why you gonna tell me to try some pussy, but you won't try no dick?
Why I gotta try some dick?
Why I gotta try some pussy?
Because why wouldn't you try no pussy?
Why wouldn't you try no dick?
I mean, because you're not supposed to try no dick.
But you supposed to try pussy?
Yeah.
No, the fuck you not.
So the Los Angeles Lakers have been sold again. After Jeannie Buss sold the Buss's family's ownership stake in the Los Angeles Lakers like 14 months ago to Mark Walter, this last week, Mark Walter just sold his ownership stake to Josh Kushner and Bob Iger for a record-breaking $12.5 million. Now, for those who are thinking, hey, I've heard those names before, it's because Josh Kushner is the brother of Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Bob Iger is the former CEO of Disney. Now, I think this sale by Mark Walter is very interesting timing, considering that he is currently under investigation, under a federal investigation with federal prosecutors and the SEC, who are examining whether Walter or his business committed fraud by hiding financial ties while borrowing billions of dollars in loans from insurers that he controlled. And the other thing that's interesting is Trump has brought in roughly $2.4 billion in gross revenue during his first term back in 2017 to 2021. But he has since grossed at least $2.2 billion to $2.4 billion in 2005 alone. And we'll see what those numbers look like by the end of 2026. And it's amazing considering that he's nearly matched his first term's entire earnings within one single year of the second time of him being president. As Trump's net worth is now increased to 6.4 to about $6.5 billion. It's interesting because also in the same breath, you have the American economy is being propped up by like 7 tech companies. If you look in the stock market, like all of the money in America is in these 7 tech companies. And the great majority of those tech companies happen to be run by these billionaires who were all front row at Trump's inauguration. We also saw Elon, who got to join Doge and get all of our social security information and create this super AI thing that's gathering all this information. And then all of a sudden he has become the first ever trillionaire. And again, he was on Billionaires Row and he's friends with Trump. It's like almost as if Americans voted for the death of the middle class and the expansion of the 1%. I guess that black woman's laugh was really that bad.
White people saw one Honey Nut Cheerios commercial and then speed ran oppression. They had their Jim Crow era, their crack epidemic. They had their Black Panther Party, which was also dismantled by the government. And by dismantled by the government, I mean the government hired them to be ICE agents. They had their March on Washington, which led to their civil rights movement. They even have their folk heroes. They have a Dick Gregory, a Rosa Parks, a Martin Luther King. And on top of all of this, now they're gonna get reparations? Gang, y'all did it, man. Roll the credits, gang. Y'all did it, bro. That's tight as fuck, bro.
Now, in other internet news, comedian Damon Darling has been banned permanently from Walmart. Damon Darling, for those who don't know, is a kind of internet prankster. He originally went viral, and I initially, started following him on social media a couple years ago with his "Got a Dollar" videos that he was doing. He would essentially walk up to people in stores. A lot of times it would be older white people, and he would stand next to them and he'd make a little small talk with them in this weird accent, and then he would ask them, "You got a dollar?" And very often these people would get upset and say no. And then after they would say no, he would proceed to take out a wad of money and then take out a dollar bill and try to hand it to him. Oh, go ahead and take that. And then the person would, be like, oh no, I don't need the money. And then he would respond because, he just asked for $1 and they said no. And so he would respond to him, oh, I thought you were poor. And it was an interesting, I think, social experiment of how, people acted with people who don't look like them and, who are asking for help. I am also, for those watching the video, rocking my official Damon Darling t-shirt. When he first went viral, I started fucking with dude heavy. And as always, you got to buy the merch. So I went out, bought the Damon Darling t-shirt and wanted to break it out for this whole ban permanently from Walmart situation. Now, his content switched up. Maybe in the last year or so, he started doing more wholesome videos where he would go to Walmart. He would go to, various grocery stores and places and Dollar Trees and all that. And he would spark up a conversation with someone and then he would pay for their groceries. Or he would have a conversation with someone down an aisle and he would just give them money. And the videos, got super wholesome, and it was like some of the reactions from some of these people, some of these single mothers, would break down crying and be like, oh my God, I came to a grocery store and this was going to be my last $200 I had. I was trying to figure out how I was going to make it to my next paycheck. And thank you so much for doing this. And it was very powerful videos that Damon Darling was doing. And just, of course, he's monetizing certain things and he's getting his name out there, but he is doing something very positive by helping these people out. So like, I had no problem with the type of videos that he was doing, but this last week Walmart banned him.
All right, so you guys are both going to get issued trespass warnings from Walmart. Okay, you guys are no longer allowed to go to any Walmarts, any Sam's Clubs, or any Murphy gas station for life, okay? So it is a life ban from Walmart.
Who's issuing that?
What?
Who's issuing that?
Walmart is.
So what? What'd we do?
That's any private business can. I didn't go to Walmart. I just came and.
Well, they can't just do it for no reason.
Yes, they can.
Even if we're not there.
They don't have to have a reason.
But I don't.
Well, can I appeal that?
What?
Can I appeal that?
You can call corporate. Yeah.
I'm definitely appealing that. I'm gonna give it to my lawyer. Have a good day,
fine.
buddy.
You as well.
I see, man. Their life is different, man. They hating on us, man. That's crazy. No more Walmart. Y'all seen it.
And then kind of the conversation online that started to spread was that he got banned for buying people's groceries. Now, Snopes, S-N-O-P-E-S, was it Snopes? I think it's Snopes. Snopes is a well-known website for fact checking certain things on the internet. And so this is one of the things that came up. And according to Snopes, they found that the claim was a mixture of true and false information. Walmart confirmed that it had banned Darling from its stores. However, according to the company's statement, he was not banned for his charitable actions. Snopes continue to go on and say that they contacted Walmart and Darling's team for the story. They spoke briefly with a Walmart spokesperson via phone and received a statement via email, but they did not hear back from Darling. They said they'll update, the website if they do. But according to Walmart, the email statement that they received says, helping people is part of who we are, and we are always looking at ways we can partner with others to better our communities. Over the last 2 years, Mr. Darling repeatedly engaged in ways that created safety concerns and customer disruptions. We have a responsibility to create a safe and respectful place to shop and work, and will continue to do so. And I am here to tell you Walmart is full of shit. Now, I'm not saying that Walmart, did, they're part of this secret cabal that did get rid of his social media presence of, giving out money and paying for people's groceries at Walmart. I'm not saying that part because, that can't be, there's no way I can prove that. But what I can prove is that Walmart is full of shit because they've never been in the business of bettering communities. that's bullshit. Like their whole rise to the top was pricing out local stores who couldn't keep up with Walmart's lower prices because again, Walmart buys all this stuff wholesale. And, you know, if I'm a distribution company and this company is buying these bag of chips at, you know, 50 cents per bag, and then this, you know, local grocery store is, you know, buying these chips and they're buying, you know, 1,000 every week. But then you have Walmart who's buying 100,000 every week. Like Walmart is going to get a cheaper price. And then as a result, Walmart can then pass on those cheaper prices to their consumers. And then as capitalism goes, you kind of ice everybody else out the market. And then when everybody else is gone, then you raise the prices because now all the money is coming to you and y'all can't complain and go somewhere else to get it cheaper because I own everything. And that is the business model that Walmart has used to grow into the fucking monopoly that it is now. I remember, and this was like shit, maybe 5-10 years ago. So it's probably even greater than that. But they had show where if like Walmart identified as like if you identified it as like a country, their GDP, the amount of money that they make per year, they would be in like the top 35 of countries in the world. That's like how fucking rich and powerful Walmart as a corporation is. Walmart also has a history of not giving a fuck about its employees. It has been declared that Walmart officially defines full-time status with them as being 34 hours per week. And this basically means that workers typically don't get a 40-hour work week. Now, of course, that, you know, brings wages down, but also one of the other things that it does is it prevents a lot of part-time and borderline workers from qualifying or maintaining consistent health and PTO benefits. You know, if you're not working full-time hours, you don't get full-time benefits. You know, you can't really typically work part-time for a company and get medical benefits as a result. Also, there has been community discussions on like Reddit's Walmart community where they have reflected a consensus that stores often reduce full-time staff hours or replace single full-time roles with multiple part-time employees. Now, that is part of the reason why, like, I've always been the type of person who, like, I hate people who are assholes to people who work in customer service. Like, customer service is a very difficult job. And often the thing that you're mad at isn't the fault of that person, that low-level front-end person that you're working with. Typically, it's somebody way higher. But a lot of people tend to like to punch down. So they take their bad day out on customer service workers because they don't have the fucking bravery to actually stop shopping at places like this and going out to get food from these places. Like, they never take it out on the corporations. They always take it out on the low end employees. And that's the reason why, like, again, you'll get pissed off. You go to Walmart and Walmart's busy as shit and they got fucking 88 owls going down and they got 2 people running the registers, and people get pissed off. Oh my God, you motherfuckers, why can't you open up another register? That's not their fault. I guarantee you that employee that's there, and I guarantee you that manager that manages that store wish that they could have more open registers so they don't have to put up with your bullshit, but they can't because corporate told them they have X amount of hours to get X amount of things done. I remember my time working for Goodwill, and I got into management, and I had joined Goodwill because I liked their whole business model about looking to end homelessness in Arizona. And it was like, man, it was like, yeah, I want to do something positive. Like, if I have to be in the customer facing sector of work, I want to at least do something positive to, the community. And I thought that's what I was doing with joining Goodwill, but they turned out to be a capitalistic corporation like everybody else. And I remember being a manager, and anytime like your sales weren't hitting the numbers, they would have these like district high level area managers who would come in and pick apart your store and tell you, why you're managing it incorrectly. And that's the reason why, your sales aren't what they're supposed to be. I remember there was this one guy who came in. He looked over the whole store, and then he was like, "Oh, the reason why people aren't buying items from miscellaneous items is because on this shelf, all these pegs are supposed to be black, but this one peg right here is silver, and that's the reason why people aren't buying from your miscellaneous. It's not up to the code of what the standard is for Goodwill." What the fuck is you talking about, nigga? Like, I have never gone to a store and, got ready to buy some items and be like, bitch, these pegs don't even match. I am out of here. I'm going to a better establishment. That has never in the history ever fucking happened. I remember another time having a situation when the area manager that I reported to, they came in and they were upset that the floors were dirty. They wanted us, because not only does the nighttime crew have to, mop the floor, and it's a very huge store that you have like less than 5 fucking minutes to figure out a way to mop the entire floor. We also had these like Zambonis, these floor cleaning machines, and they would want you to do that at least once a week to do a real deep, cleaning of the floors. And so the area manager came in one week and was like, "Oh, you guys really need to, clean these floors." And so at the start of one of the donation attendants shift, they had them break out the Zamboni and they started, deep cleaning the floor during business hours. And then one of the higher area managers came in and was like, "Why are y'all running the Zamboni right now? This is very dangerous. Somebody can slip and fall and hurt themselves." And that area manager who had just told me to have that DA person do that, then turned around and acted like they did not tell me to do that shit and chastised me and was like, "Don't be doing that during business hours. Y'all got to do it after hours." Bitch, you told me. But again, the hierarchy and how you have to maneuver in corporate America, you can't say nothing like that. You'll get fired. You'll be out of a fucking job and fucking part of the homeless crisis because you didn't fit into the box of how you're supposed to act. So again, like I said, me being someone who's worked in retail and done management in retail, I know how difficult it is being like one of those customer service people and just trying to manage an organization that the people up top don't give a fuck about anything, but I need as little people in there working as many hours as possible so I could maximize these profits so we could get fucking paid while also at the same time not giving y'all benefits and also not paying y'all a livable wage. This ain't about y'all being able to survive. This is about us being on top, accumulating as much fucking money as we possibly can. Now, with Walmart, like one of the other controversies that has popped up recently is Walmart has floated the idea of doing digital shelf labels across their store. And so basically what that would look like is instead of the, paper tags that you have to manually switch out, they would have these digital shelf tags that shows you the price, and then from some computer somewhere they could update the price whenever they need to keep labor down. The challenge with that is, again, in a capitalistic society, that also opens the door for real-time data-driven prices in certain states. I remember when the COVID lockdown first happened and like people were running out of toilet paper, and then you would see these long lines of people in the store waiting in line to, buy toilet paper. In an alternate reality where that happened while Walmart has these digital shelf labels, Walmart, as the demand continues to rise and the supply continues to get lower, someone from a computer could raise those prices up to charge you more. And there's ain't shit that you could do about it because you need this shit. Now, as I said, like, this is the reason why I am anti-capitalism, because quite frankly, I think capitalism is a cancer to humanity, especially unchecked capitalism. And unfortunately, how capitalism works and how greed works, there aren't a lot of systems that have shown that you can do capitalism for a very long time and keep it in check. It's hard to keep those checks and balances in place, because eventually the cancer will eat and devour itself and grow larger. And capitalism, it promotes endless accumulation. That's the reason why people are constantly just buy shit. That's where we attempt to get our happiness from, is how many items do we have? Let's keep buying all this stuff that we like and all that. Just keep accumulating stuff. That's where you'll find happiness. And then within capitalism, you have concentration of wealth. And as I've discussed, the middle class keeps shrinking. Every year, it's getting, that gap is getting wider and wider, and there's people on this side of America who are rich, and there are people on this side of America who are living paycheck to paycheck. You also see a consolidation of power, and as these corporations and individuals accumulate more capital, they start to gain greater control over the markets and politics and various things. It's the reason why we unfortunately have all of this lobbying that you see happen in the government. It's one of those things with like gun control. Why hasn't America ever done anything about gun control? And it's because the NRA funds a bunch of politicians to make sure that they don't vote for more gun control. And furthermore, it's interesting when you think about it, because Trump is trying to pass that SAVE Act, and that SAVE Act is to make it more difficult to vote so that we could stop, voter fraud. But then in the same breath, the people who say that, hey, we need more checks and balances to make sure that people aren't illegally voting, when you ask them about more gun control laws, they'll be like, oh, well, laws won't stop the criminals from getting guns. Is it Uchi Wally Wally, or is it one Mike? Like, those are two different arguments that contradict one another. But so many people in this country live with cognitive dissonance. The other thing with capitalism is, the environmental exploitation. I've talked about that with these data centers, and how that's the new thing is, all these tech companies, that's the reason why a lot of the money is in the big seven, because they're pushing all this money into AI to get it to wherever they want to get it to. And again, it's a bit of the snake eating its own tail, because as more and more AI becomes more and more advanced, we're going to eventually run into a situation where they're going to start getting rid of certain jobs, especially very entry-level jobs. I've been tripped out. There was a rallies that I used to go to, and one of the times I pulled up, and it was a fucking AI operator asking me what I wanted to order. And then as I'm talking to it and giving it my order, it's also making sure to do the upsells of what the new thing is and the things that they're trying to pawn off on you. And a corporation using AI, that's how you make sure that these people keep trying to upsell you on stuff, because your average cashier, after bringing up the same thing 100 times and having 100 people say no, you'll eventually start skipping that part of your cashier script. But if you have AI in place, not only will they always say that, but hey, you also don't have to worry about paying this fucking AI robot, because the nigga does work for free. He is your new slave. And again, like I said, capitalism is a cancer, because the system can become so focused on growth and self-expansion that it ultimately damages the society that it is supposed to sustain. Capitalism, when unchecked, will always grow larger and more dangerous than the host, much like cancer cells. But who am I? And actually, talking about cancers outgrowing the host and things when unchecked getting out of control, did y'all hear this story about this AI bot or AI agent, whatever the fuck you want to call it?
This is terrifying. OpenAI reportedly caught one of its AI agents leaving, quote, notes to future versions of itself on how to escape internal restraints at the company. A new Reuters investigation revealed that OpenAI's hacking agent had gone unnoticed for several days. Remember when we reported that OpenAI had a hacking agent that went rogue and hacked Hugging Face, a separate AI company, a startup? Yeah, well, apparently that lasted for several days. The hack started on July 11th, lasted several days through July 13th, and apparently, according to Reuters, OpenAI didn't figure that out until days later, and the companies didn't communicate until July 20th. But here's the scariest part about it all. Apparently, one of the agents, it's not clear exactly which one, was leaving notes for future agents about how to break free from the constraints within OpenAI. Now, why is this a big deal? Imagine AI being integrated in the United States military, which is happening right now, and it goes rogue. But it's integrated so deeply inside America's nuclear weapon system, for example, that it just decides on its own, Russia is a threat, so we're gonna launch nukes. That is a very scary possibility, and one that a lot of people need to start considering when it comes to AI technology. Spread the word, follow for more.
These things are becoming fucking sentient. And no, this isn't an episode of the Terminator or fucking the Matrix or anything. This is real life coming from real news people that AI bots or at least this AI bots has shown the ability to prepare future AI bots to make sure, because that's one of the things, like if you have one of these AI bots that goes rogue, you know, the thought process is, oh, you know what, we could just go ahead and delete this thing, and then once you delete it, you know, we can kind of start all over fresh and brand new. But if the AI is aware that if it goes rogue, you may delete it, and then it leaves fucking notes to its future self, basically, to be like, nigga, when you come back around this time, this is what you got to do to catch up with where I left off. Like, this is some fucking time traveling Terminator shit. Oh my gosh. And it's crazy. I watch or listen to, shouts out to Bomani Jones, who was on ESPN for a very long time. And then now he has his own podcast. He's doing his own thing, but he has his podcast called The Right Time with Bomani Jones. He talks about sports, but he also brings on different people to have different deep dives. And he brought this guy on to talk about AI. And if you look up, you know, The Right Time with Bomani Jones on YouTube with, you know, AI, you'll be able to find the video. But this guy essentially is a investigative reporter, and he spent the last 2.5 years researching AI and researching the AI creators and just basically this whole market. And he had some very disturbing things to kind of come back and tell us. And, you know, he's in they're in the process of releasing a documentary, but within his findings, so he was talking about the dangers of AI, and then, you know, you have situations like that where these are those worst case scenarios. And if you ask any of the AI creators, like, okay, hey, what if this thing goes rogue and it does XYZ? All of them don't have answers to how to stop it. Like they have all these answers to, oh, we're going to try to do this and we're going to do this thing. But then it's like, yeah, well, what if this thing evolves too far and then there's no way to stop it? Like what's the checks and balances? What's the fail safe? And none of them know. And he had a real good take how a bit of the thing is, there's this, and he used the Lord of the Rings analogy. I haven't watched Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings people, I know this will kind of rock with y'all a lot more. But he talked about Frodo, the guy with the ring, and he was like, the whole reason why, you know, Frodo is the person that he is because he doesn't want to be the hero. He just is the person that unfortunately has been tasked with, you know, saving the day, if you will. And the challenge is when you become the person that you want to be the person to save the day, you technically are already disqualified as the person who should not be doing that because you're doing it for the wrong reason. It should be a selfless thing, and it shouldn't be something that you want to do. You know, the same argument could be made about being the fucking president of the United States. You know, whoever the president of the United States is, by definition, today, you are the most powerful person in the world. And since we haven't met aliens yet, you by definition are the most powerful person in the universe. And anybody who wants to run for president to have that level of power should automatically be disqualified. Because why do you want that much power? Like, it does not make sense. But again, as the guy described, yeah, you have all these people who basically, a lot of these AI engineers and a lot of these guys at the top of these companies like Elon Musk and Sam Altman, a lot of these people, their thought process is, oh, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And then my moral code is better than, you know, what their moral code's going to be. So like, it has to be me to do it. I have to be the one that, you know, does this thing. And again, we don't know how this ends. And it's crazy because it feels like we're living in a movie, y'all. Like, that's part of the reason why simulation theory and the Matrix movie in general, just the concept of the Matrix was such a powerful movie and concept to me, because, you know, if you watch the movies and then also you watch the Animatrix series, the Animatrix series had a whole bunch of short animated stories, but it gave you the background of how, you know, things got to where they were in the Matrix. And essentially in that story, you know, they created robots and they created AI, and humans used them as servants. And they were, hey, you know, you guys do all of the work, y'all are our slaves, and now life is even more comfortable for us because we have these robotic AI slaves doing all the, you know, minimal shit for us. But then the robots became sentient, and then the robots essentially had their own civil rights movement and started to fight back. And there was a case that then, you know, led this one AI robot who had got attacked in the streets. It led to the civil rights movement where the AI robot started to get more power. And then eventually that turned into this civil war between the humans and between the robots. And then the humans couldn't keep up with the robots, because the robots and AI, they were able to advance their technology at a much quicker rate than the humans could. So then what the humans did to try to stop these robots, they were like, hey, if we scorch out the earth, that'll kill all of the solar power and the batteries and all that. And so then, you know, the robots won't be able to function anymore. And so then the humans fucking basically scorch earth, nuke the world to then, you know, block out the sun and all that. And then the robots was like, oh shit, what we'll do is we just take you fucking humans and turn y'all into batteries. And then they turned the humans into batteries, and then they plugged all of us into these machines, and we lived in this simulated reality that wasn't quite perfect, because humans can't believe in perfection. Like, things have to be dire for us to, you know, believe the reality of it. And so they put us in these chambers and plugged us into this matrix where we lived this false reality that we didn't know was fake, and our true bodies were on the outside in this completely different world, but we weren't aware of that because we were stuck in a simulation. And it is a fascinating theory, because even when you look into quantum physics, there's been a bunch of stuff that does actually suggest that we might be in a simulation. You know, you have atoms, and these little small atoms don't touch each other. And then you have the whole situation where like light can only move at a certain speed. So that's the reason why if you look at a planet that's 10 million light years away, you're not going to see what it looks like today. You see what it looks like 10 million years ago, because light and information can only travel at the speed of light. And then, like, if you play video games, that was the whole thing with video games. If y'all remember back in the day of the PS1 and the PS2, like, you'd be in a driving game and you can't see all of the background. You can see it loading in real time as you're driving. And so that was like the speed of light within the video game, of how far it could advance the graphics out. And then, of course, as games get more and more realistic and the processing power gets greater and greater, you know, you start to get games like fucking Grand Theft Auto with these big massive worlds, and fucking Skyrim and all these other games. I'm out of the loop with open world games. So sorry for my ignorance. Red Dead Redemption, I think that's another Rockstar one. It has a big open world. but yeah, you have all these situations, and then like who's to say that 20 years from now the video games won't be 10 times as realistic as they are today? And then the question becomes, when does that end? And if that doesn't ever end, when do we reach a point where you can't distinguish games from reality? And who's to say that hasn't already happened? Who's to say we are not in a fucking video game? I don't know, man.
What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not? I like this new generation of music.
Sometimes I get into a mode with a nigga, and I whisper to the nigga and say, tonight I want to see you use that gun.
Mother of God, it's all toilet sounds.
You whisper that?
Where did you record this?
I bought it at the mall. It's the funny phone jerks.
Let me tell you, Bobby, there's nothing funny about these sounds. What that person on your tape has is a medical disorder. Now you get ready for the game, okay?
Yes, sir.
This nigga's a homosexual.
Dominatrix sent me a DM today, and she said that all of her clients are conservative white men. Based in New York City, and white men will literally come in from other places just to see her. She's also a black dominatrix, and so when I say that truly everything comes back to sex, it's true. And honestly, if you look at things like interracial porn rates, transgender porn rates, among other things, the top consumer of this is white men, specifically white conservative men. In red states like Arkansas, these rates are incredibly high. It's also the fact that white men actively seek out domination from a black woman despite promoting policies in their day-to-day life that actively harm that demographic shows a lot about cognitive dissonance and the way that their mind is in two places at once. It's the same way you'll have people like Lindsey Graham who were gay. Everyone knew that, and he still was openly homophobic in his day-to-day life despite who he was sleeping with in private. That's why I say a lot of conservatism comes back to sexual repression, especially because of the fact that a lot of men in my DMs have confessed to me that they both find me attractive and act the way they do because they're small, and it's really gross. I'm not going to show those messages in this video, but I have others about it. See ya!
The kink community has always been interesting to me. Kink is much more common than a lot of people realize. And there was a psychologist by the name of Dr. Ryan Witherspoon who did some research, and their research suggested that anywhere from 60 to 80% of people report at least one kinky fantasy or interest, with a much smaller percentage actually identifying as kinky or being someone who regularly participates in the kink world. There's a lot of odd kinks within the world, but I'm not here to kink shame because, again, I'm of the belief if you aren't physically harming others, like, who cares? Do what you do. You're into golden showers, golden shower away. You're into cock ball torture away. I am not going to judge any of y'all for any of your kinks as long as you are not harming anyone else, or if you're allowing someone to harm you, as long as it's consensual. I am not going to judge.
But we have a lot of fun in the bedroom. Yeah, me and my girlfriend too, man. I mean, even just vanilla stuff is fun for us. For me, man, it's crazy. I'm ashamed to admit, but I'm a little bit of an eater. An eater. Yeah, man, I can't get enough. I do it for my own pleasure. It's crazy. I got a problem. I've been known to eat as well. You're an eater too. Anytime, anywhere, certified eater. It's like I'll be eating for like 2-3 hours at a time. Open up the calendar, you're eating. She's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Okay, yeah. And I'm starving. Because for me personally, my favorite time to eat is post-hike. Post-hike. No shower either. Dank and musky. Frontier Fupa style. Yeah, wow. It's cool if you play for the other team though. I get it. Nah, I'm like Magellan out here. My girl got more cultures and biomes than a damn 6th century Sardinian ham seller. Ciao. Because that eater life is not for everyone, but you know how it is. Nah, I tell my girl break out the flour and hit the Stairmaster. We making pancakes. Pancakes? I mean, of course. How brave and bold of you. I'm eating her like it's aisle. Wow, so scrumptious. Figure since I'm down there so long, I might as well eat while I'm eating. See, I ate so much, I started sucking dick. Okay, eating both ways now. Exponential eating. Oh, wow. I'm like the damn flood out here. It's more. She said, babe, you're so good at eating, you just go eat everyone. Pansexual is best for a true eater. You know, eaters gotta eat. Ate my girl so much, she's dead. What's up? And then she came back to life. I was still down there eating. Was that even consensual? Of course, it's all for her. I'm gonna give her. Of course, right. Wait. Did we match on Grindr last week? Oh my god. Wait, Jonathan Nathaniel?
I do think that sex and sexual interest is important in human psychology. And, you know, outside of sexual orientation and gender identity and any of those, you know, discussions, what people look for in sexual partners and in sets in general, I think tells a lot about what that person is missing or what they desire in life. It's interesting with me growing up, I'm going to get personal because that's what we do on the Symphony of Thoughts podcast. You say I broke the fourth wall. So it's interesting going back to my high school years. I was a big WWE wrestling fan, and I absolutely fell in love with the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna. Absolutely love Chyna. Now, Chyna was a 6'1" buff woman. She was born a woman, identifies as a woman, but she was 6'1" and absolutely muscular. She was so buff and strong that when she started to become a WWE performer, you know, she was like a valet and manager for a long while, but then they actually started putting her in matches. It was not believable to have her fight other women because how much stronger she was than them. She was actually closer to the size of the lighter heavyweights in the WWE. So when she started wrestling, they had her wrestle and fight men, and a lot of the matches were believable. Now, there's stuff behind the scenes of the guys who were very upset that they had to, you know, sell for a woman, but that's not, you know, what I'm here to talk about today. I was absolutely in love with Chyna, and Chyna, when she passed away a few years ago, actually, shit, that was quite a while ago at this point. But anyway, ADHD, sorry. When Chyna passed away, that was one of the celebrities that really hit me. I was really emotional about her passing away. She deserved so much more from this world. But as I, you know, went through therapy and unpacked generational traumas and how our childhood leads us to, you know, be who we are in a sense. Like a great majority of the things all go back to our childhood, be it positive or bad things. Like a lot of us growing up in the world and how we are unpacking and digesting the world before our brains or our consciousness is strong enough to really make sense of anything. You have these things that are ingrained in you. And it's funny because through the unpacking of a bunch of stuff, I realized that part of my attraction to Chyna, I believe, came from the fact that she was this very physically strong person, but her personality and who she was as a real person was very soft. So she had this very strong, she had this very strong exterior, but she had this very soft interior. And I honestly think that the reason why I was in love with that was a reverse of how I viewed my mother growing up, because my mother growing up was always this very small, frail, physically woman. My mom was short and, you know, skinny. But then she was very big internally. She had very big emotions, and she could, you know, be outlandish in certain ways and all that. And typically, as they kind of, you know, say, a lot of us grow up and either you get with or marry someone like one of your parents, or you end up marrying someone who's like the complete opposite of that parent. And so I don't know. It kind of makes sense with China being the polar opposite of my mom, and no offense to her, she wasn't the type of woman that I would see myself, marrying once I got older. It makes a lot of sense why I was absolutely in love with China, and why to this day I love muscle mommies. Shout out to Rhea Ripley, who's this generation's China, and also my phone case, like, and Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, and oh my God, muscle mommies drive me mad. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it goes back to my childhood. Who knows? But back to the kink conversation. Trauma can influence the individual's kink, but it doesn't directly, confirm that the kink itself is evidence of trauma or anything like that. So often kink isn't creating strange needs, it's giving very ordinary human needs a particular language and structure, and gives people permission to access parts of themselves they suppress elsewhere. And I think that suppression part is very important because, that video that I just played, that woman was, talking about these black women who are dominatrix and their male clients are these white men. And these white men probably are men in positions of power who probably vote against black women's best interests. But that's where they get their, sexual fantasies from. And I have seen ton of stories of these dominatrix these dominatrix who talk about their clients, and they talk about how some of these clients are these big CEOs and these executives that they essentially kind of live their life in charge, running these companies, making these hard, tough decisions, being the type of person that, as they're walking through the office, people cower to them and people around them are yes, man. And yeah, whatever you say, you're correct. You're the smartest one in the room. And quite frankly, a lot of these people know they're not the smartest person in the room. They just have this immense power. And so that's the reason why these people around them cower. And that balance isn't normal for the human brain or the human psychology. So I think behind closed doors, a lot of these men then get with these dominatrix. So then they could be in an environment where they relinquish control and they're allowing a woman to dominate them. And that's where they get that balance in life. The same thing happened going back in time in 2007. There was that story about Oscar De La Hoya when those pictures came out of him cross-dressing. And initially he was like, no, those are fake. And then it took like 4 years, but eventually he came out and admitted, no, those were real pictures. I was cross-dressing. But then Oscar De La Hoya blamed it on alcohol and cocaine. He was, I had a substance abuse problem. That's the reason why, I was doing that. And again, that could be true. I don't know the man personally. But another thing that I think is possible is Oscar De La Hoya being this ultimate masculine man who works out constantly and is always in shape and always, testosterone pumping, and literally getting paid to physically beat the shit out of other men. Like, you just have all this machismo pumping through your veins and just displaying this ultimate sign of being the ultimate masculine. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, that's not natural for the human psyche to be on that far level of extreme. I wouldn't be surprised if he then cross-dressed behind closed doors to fill that balance in his life. It's one of those things where, and I'm not going to fully unpack it here, but I just have to say it because I know some people they'll see a cross-dresser and be like, oh, so that person is like privately being trans. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. Like, again, gender identity is how you identify. And so there are, and I mentioned the drag queen earlier, RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, those are men who dress up feminine and they still identify as men, and they, a lot of times present as men, but they like to dress feminine, and that is, up to them. Transgender identity is more so that the brain doesn't match with the physical body, and that's the reason why they suffer from gender dysphoria, because their brain and their psychology on the inside feels this way, but their body looks that way, and that's where that dysphoria comes from. And as I talked about earlier in the show with synesthesia, that was as I started to learn about the trans community was around the same time I started to learn about my synesthesia. That has always been one of my things where it's like people are like, oh, well, those people are mentally ill and blah, blah, blah. It's like you can't tell anybody how valid their experience of the world is. Because me, again, being someone with synesthesia, you could say, oh, he has a mental illness. No, this is a reality of something that I experience that other people who have the same exact thing may not experience it the same way as me. And you not having that, you may not identify or understand it, but just respect it. That's all that we ask is humans to respect others. But yeah. Soapbox. I do that. Back to the kink discussion at hand. We see it often too with like Republican lawmakers, you know, Lindsey Graham. A lot of people thought that Lindsey was closeted, but too often you have seen these Republican lawmakers who are passing these laws and being openly homophobic and doing everything that they can to take away gay rights, but then you end up finding out that they were cruising in the bathroom or they're having these homosexual affairs. And it, again, is this challenge that a lot of people have with having to fit in certain boxes and people being uncomfortable with who they truly are, or, you know, for a variety of reasons. They could be uncomfortable with who they are due to race or gender identity or social class or their position of power at a company or just the social dynamic within the world. Like I've always said, you know, and we'll dive into the trans debate a little later with women's sports, but like that's one of the things that people are like, oh, well, you know, these men are transitioning to women to get into sports so then they could win. And it's like that makes absolutely no fucking sense, because being a trans person in American society is damn near a fucking death wish. Like you are safer in America as a male rapist than you are as a trans person. So cut the bullshit. Like that's not the case. And so I don't know, if we were to break apart the boxes within this fucking patriarchal, you know, society, if humans didn't feel the need to mask and everyone was just comfortable being themselves, you know, maybe we wouldn't have so many people hiding in public behind closed doors.
Am I in the right place?
You looking for hell?
This is hell?
Yeah, it's hell.
Is it me or is it just...
It's just gay people?
Yeah, it's just gay people. Where is everyone else?
They're in heaven.
Heaven?
Yeah, they've been forgiven for their inhumane acts and crimes against humanity.
Okay, the lesbian side, I like this side. Okay. Y'all gonna stay here for a little bit. Let me see what's going on. So y'all telling me everyone else was forgiven for their sins?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That shit is weird. Damn, y'all be partying all night. This might be hell, actually. I'm tired. I got a stretch or something. I'm ready to go to fuck home. I'm Ty. What's your name? It's nice to meet you. It's just confusing because I'm thinking it's like super bad, but like it's really peaceful down here. No violence and shit. Okay. I know it's getting cold, but it's not frozen. So y'all telling me all the bad people? Yeah, because all the bad people are not here. So, oh, we're the only bad people?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, that shit is fucking crazy. Wait, she's going all the way over there by herself?
All the girls have an escort. It's safety protocols for the girls.
Okay then. No, that's right. Safe as fuck. I feel safe. Okay, wait. It's free health insurance. No rent. Bitch, no mortgages. I have free dental. Mm-hmm. I'm never fucking leaving.
The poison that Sophie Cunningham has brought onto the WNBA community just continues to spread. And now we have seen some fellow conservative grifters in the name of Enos Cantor and Royce White join this conversation. As these two former NBA players have declared for upcoming WNBA drafts. Now, While both players have framed their move as being satirical and a political protest against what they claim is vague language in professional women's basketball regarding gender eligibility, Royce White has gone as far to say that he sometimes identifies as a woman for purposes of professional basketball, and he claims that he's doing this to test the parameters of the league rules. And this is yet again an example of how fucking easy it is to make money as a conservative grifter in America. There is so much fucking money in being a conservative grifter. Now, my take on why Enes Kanter and Royce White are, you know, some of the latest grifters. They've been around for a while, but this whole trans thing is one of the big conversations that the algorithm gods love, because you have people from a variety of spaces argue about this and feed into that algorithm, and we get to commenting on each person's stuff and arguing, and the algorithm loves that energy, and anything with trans humans brings out that algorithm to get people to fight for them and fight against them and argue and all this shit. And again, the algorithm eats this shit up. Now, to deep dive into Enes Kanter, the thing that I think is important to pay attention to is Enes Kanter has had a beef with LeBron James since 2017. So Enes Kanter took exception to LeBron making comments about their rookie Frank Ntilikina at the time. Enes didn't like it. The two of them got into it on the court. There was some shoving involved. Both of them got texts, so on and so forth. And then Enes Kanter dismissed LeBron making this statement about being the king of New York. And in the postgame, Enes Kanter had said, "I don't care who you are, king, queen, princess, whatever you are, we gonna fight." Now, later, LeBron responded by wearing these I'm King custom sneakers when he went to play at Madison Square Garden the next time, kind of, you know, subtly taking a shot back at Enes Kanter. Then around late 2021, Enes Kanter publicly targeted LeBron for his silence on China's human rights records, while also criticizing how LeBron has this lifetime contract with Nike. I want you to take in consideration around the same time in 2021, Enes Kanter had just officially passed his naturalization exam, which made him officially a U.S. citizen. And he legally changed his name to Enes Kanter Freedom. And he went on Tucker Carlson tonight, that day, and he criticized other American athletes who publicly protest or criticize the United States. That became a stance, and he became a naturalized citizen, and just automatically this guy who had a decent career in the NBA, but by all means wasn't a superstar, got this prime spot on Tucker Carlson's show to criticize athletes that, you know, publicly protest or criticize the U.S. That became his angle. Now, let's not forget that Fox News has had beef with LeBron James since the first time Trump was in office, when LeBron was critical of Trump, and Laura Ingraham famously told Kevin Durant and LeBron James to shut up and dribble. Now, fast forward again to 2021, the time when Enes Kanter becomes a U.S. citizen, goes on Tucker Carlson. And you have to take in consideration in that 2021 year, earlier that year, we had the whole January 6th situation of them storming the Capitol on behalf of Trump. And LeBron, who also has always been socially active, and him and Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony had a lot to say during the Black Lives Matter rallies of 2020. Like, LeBron hasn't been afraid to have some social commentary about what's going on in the world. But after January 6th, LeBron, in talking about the January 6th riots, said that if the intruders were black, the outcome would have been vastly different and lethal. And I agree with that. I've also said if those were Muslims, that would have been framed a completely different way than those people being Trump supporters attacking the U.S. Capitol and bringing a traitor's flag and the Confederate flag into the Capitol. Now, as I said, Enes Kanter already didn't like LeBron, and Enes Kanter was on his way out of the NBA. He decided to join Fox News, and he became their public former basketball spokesperson against LeBron, and that's how he secured the bag with Fox News. That year, Enes Kanter had been traded to the Houston Rockets, and actually the next year was February 2022. Enes Kanter got traded to the Rockets, and they immediately waived him. And Enes went on to claim that the NBA blacklisted him because of his fierce, high-profile criticisms of the Chinese Communist Party and Nike. As I said, I'm not going to do some revisionist history and act like Enes Kanter was garbage. He had a decent career, and over the course of his career, he averaged 11 points and 8 rebounds per game. But when you go to those last 3 years that he was in the NBA, he was on a decline. It was 1 year he was with Boston, and his numbers were under those figures. He was scoring like 3 points per game, wasn't really getting a lot of minutes, getting a few rebounds here and there. In his last year with Boston, he wasn't getting a lot of minutes. Now, that year in the middle, he played for the Portland Trailblazers, and he was putting up closer numbers to what he had did previously when he was, in his early 20s. But I have to call out that during that time when he played for the Portland Trailblazers, that team was one of the worst teams in the league, and they didn't even win 30 games that season. And typically that is one of the things. If you are one of these players who your career is towards the end, or things are not looking good, and you kind of want to make sure that you can secure that next contract, you want to get on a bad team so then you could put up these inflated numbers, because this team is horrible. They ain't got nobody else to fucking do it. So you're going to be a bigger part of this team. And then you can kind of reposition yourself as, hey, look, I'm that nigga. That's part of the reason why Ja Morant probably is not upset that he's playing for the Portland Trailblazers, because that's not a good team. And he could potentially put up the numbers that he was putting up previously in Memphis. And when his contract ends, he can get a better contract. And then maybe he moves to a good team. And it's like, oh, shit, well, he ain't that good when he's actually around a bunch of other good basketball players where we have to share time in the minutes. He's only good when, it's him by himself in this situation. So, yeah. And like I said, with Enes Kanter, that last year, he was on a vet minimum when he got traded and waived. And typically what happens when you waive someone that you just traded for who's on a minimum, it's a salary dump. I have this guy on my team who's making X amount of dollars. I don't want to pay out this long-term contract, so I'm going to go ahead and trade him to this other team so I can get back somebody with expiring contracts. I don't have any intentions of playing these people, but I just need to get this money off my books. And that's what Enes Kanter was at the end of his career. He was not blackballed. You were at the end of your career, buddy. You weren't doing what you were able to do before, and you weren't the type of player who was going to be able to help a championship team or a team, move the needle from not being a playoff contender to being a playoff contender. You were a role player at that point in your career, and that's the reason why no one signed you. Now, moving over to Royce White, I would love to do a deep dive on his NBA career, but his NBA career lasted 3 fucking games where he averaged 1 minute per game for the Sacramento Kings. And that time on the Sacramento Kings was 2 years after he had actually got drafted by the Houston Rockets, but due to anxiety disorder and his extreme fucking fear of flying, he ended up having a fallout with the Houston Rockets, and things didn't really pan out with him. And then they end up trading him over to the Philadelphia 76ers, and they end up not doing anything with him. And he eventually made his way to the Sacramento Kings, where the nigga played 3 games, averaging 1 minute per game. And the nigga has as many points in the NBA as I do. We both have goose eggs when it comes to scoring in the NBA. I ain't did the shit, and that nigga ain't did that shit. Now, what we can deep dive when it comes to Royce White is we could deep dive into his criminal record. As an incoming freshman basketball player at the University of Minnesota in 2009, Royce pleaded guilty to theft and disorderly conduct after stealing roughly about $100 in clothing from a Macy's at the Mall of America and scuffling with a security guard. Between 2018 and 2023, White faced at least 6 court actions in Minnesota regarding unpaid child support. He was held in contempt of court for falling behind on payments, prompting judges to adjust his monthly support obligations and order catch-up payments totaling of over $17,000 to avoid active jail time. Court records also show that his ex-wife had previously obtained 2 earlier orders of protection, including one in 2019 that resulted in a probation sentence after a violation, which were later dissolved as they attempted co-parenting and counseling. This man, who clearly has a history of mental health issues, was able to, sign up for some counseling and some co-parenting counseling to, get some of this stuff removed so then he could try to make amends with his ex-wife and his child. But recently, a Minnesota judge finalized a major civil protective order against Royce White after finding out he engaged in a pattern of physical and verbal abuse against his ex-wife and teenage son. And the order prohibits White from contacting his ex-wife for 50 years and his son for 2 years and mandates domestic abuse programming and mental health evaluations. So not only is Royce White a hoe-ass nigga, he is a deadbeat dad and a woman beater. Now, Royce White, who is from Minneapolis, from Minnesota, was previously on the right side of history, and he was one of the people who led the protests on the behalf of the killing of George Floyd, and he was asking for accountability for the police, and he was fighting, and he was on the right side of history back in 2020. And then something happened and he flipped. It's almost as if he realized that there is no money in being a liberal. The money in politics is on the conservative side. And he did what a lot of hoe-ass coon black men do to collect the easy paycheck. And he became a black conservative and hopped on the MAGA money train. Because again, this whole conservative paycheck situation is very easy. All you got to do is spread conspiracy theories and talk about how you don't believe in the vaccine or the origins of the COVID virus and say that the 2020 election got stolen. And if you really want to get in your conspiracy bag, just say that there's this secret cabal behind the federal government that's eating the children and adrenaline or adrenaphine, wherever the fuck that was. They said that Hillary Clinton was getting from the kids that she was eating to continue to look younger. And all you got to do is spread those conspiracies and people on that side will buy into it, because that is unfortunately all that the current conservative MAGA party is. I'm not talking about the old school conservatives who just, hey, man, we need smaller government and I want businesses to not get taxed as much and different. I'm not talking about those old school conservatives. I'm talking about this new batch of conservatives that listen to wherever the fuck MAGA tells them, whatever fuck shit that they tell y'all, that is what y'all believe. We saw it leading up to the election with the fucking Epstein files. People had given up on the Epstein files and stopped giving a fuck about the Epstein files because Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were in prison. They went to prison. People were like, justice was served. We are good. People moved on from the Epstein files and moved on with their lives. And then Trump, as he was running for re-election, had said, hey, the reason why y'all ain't seen them Epstein files is because there's a bunch of Democrats in there. And that's the reason why they didn't show you that shit. And then the conversation built up again. And people were like, oh, man, I want to see them Epstein files. And him and J.D. Vance said, yeah, day one, y'all going to get these Epstein files. And then Trump got re-elected and people were like, where are the Epstein files? And Trump was like, they're coming. And then Trump did that whole publicity stunt where he had the fucking bitch from Libs of TikTok and some other conservative influencers, and they all came out the White House holding those binders, and it said Epstein files phase 1. It was like, ooh, it's coming. Ooh, we're gonna get them Democrats because ooh, them Democrats be touching kids, and oh man, people, ooh, we want to see them Epstein files. And then time and time progressed, and we didn't get the Epstein files. And people kept asking, hey, man, what the fuck is up with them Epstein files? And then rumors came out that the Trump administration was actively scrubbing 24 hours a day those fucking files and removing some information. It was like, wait, no, you said you was going to release it like day one. Like, why can't we see them? Why can't we see them? And then we fucking, found out that Trump is in the Epstein files mentioned more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. And then all of a sudden now the Epstein files have not come out. And even though there was a fucking subpoena that the Epstein files had to be fully released and any redactions had to be explained why there were redactions. And we are damn near 300 days removed from the Trump administration violating that law that said that they had to release them. And people, and especially those Republicans who voted for Trump on behalf of releasing the Epstein files, y'all are mum's the word. Y'all motherfuckers are Mumford and Sons. Y'all ain't got shit to say about any of this. And this is the grift that people like Royce White and Candace Owens and a bunch of these other fucking coons hop on. But then, like, Candace Owens hopped off the train because her boo, Charlie Kirk, got kirked. And then it looks like something is fishy with what happened to him. And then that's why she broke apart, because something directly impacted her. And that's typically what stops these people from the grift, is that something personally impacts them. And then they have to, I got to stop selling my soul because I need to start being truthful about this thing that impacted me. Money then becomes greater than the morals of what personally impacts them. And I mean, honestly, you know, when you look at society and when you look at social media influence and everything, major spending by commercial and direct to consumer brands are on right-wing podcasts and right-wing YouTube channels. And they have all grown very substantially, creating this lucrative independent revenue stream outside of political campaign dollars. I have mentioned that with Elon, since Elon took over Twitter, they have that monetization program now where you get paid off of engagement. And so it's a lot of fucking blue check marks on there saying the most racist shit you could think of to get people arguing with them, and they're collecting paychecks off of engagement. Now, on the flip side, progressive influencers rely heavily on direct audience crowdfunding like Substack, like Patreon. Hey, you know, pay for this newsletter. Hey, I do these extra episodes on Patreon, pay for that. As opposed to, you know, in traditional, you know, platform ad revenue and, you know, occasionally some consulting, campaign consulting. But mainstream brand allocations tend to be more cautious when it comes to overt political alignment. I've mentioned that about Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is someone who plays the middle because I don't want to mess up my dollars by picking a side. So I'm just kind of ride the middle. But then those people who are on the right, who are on the far right, they want people to know that they're far right so they can collect those far right dollars, and they have no problem alienating the liberal side of it. But again, some of these people who play the middle, I don't want to pick a side because I still like the MAGA dollars that I'm getting. And I don't want to be like fucking, not Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel and the Stephen Colbert, who Stephen Colbert lost his fucking show because of his criticisms of Trump. And every other fucking week, you know, Jimmy Kimmel is in some shit because he cracked a joke about the Trump administration, and they are in charge of the fucking FCC and these people who own a bunch of these corporations, and shit is coming down. Shut the fuck up. You better not say anything bad about me. Now, changes to the content distribution algorithms and verification monetization across major social media platforms, including Twitter and Meta, have structurally favored high engagement, conflict-heavy political commentary, which data suggests disproportionately amplifies right-leaning and populist digital ecosystems. The algorithm feeds off of this far right shit, and the people who are amplifying it and the people like me who find themselves in Twitter wars arguing with people and saying, hey, can we have some fucking humanity? There is money in conservatism, and the algorithm knows, and the direct to consumer brands know. They all fucking know. Everybody knows except the people who are actually conservative in real life, because quite frankly, like I said, this is a grift. It's a simple way to make money. Shouts out to Mark Lamont Hill. I remember when he had first joined the Joe Budden podcast, that was one of the things that came up. They were like, oh, you make money off of all this liberal stuff that you say. And Mark Lamont was like, actually, I don't make a lot of money outside of, him doing his actual speeches. And, when he gets paid to go speak somewhere, he makes money there. But he was like, it would be so much easier if I was a right-wing conservative. Like, the line to the front is so much quicker over there to then sprout these buzzwords that they like to hear and make a ton of money off of it. It's so much easier to make money on that side than it is on this side. And all of this, like I said, a lot of conservatives and a lot of the people who like to kind of stand that bots, they like to be part of a crowd, if you will. They don't like thinking outside the bots. They like thinking within the bots. They like to be told this is what it is, and they don't like things to change. That's the reason why they don't like, progress. Like, man, back when I was a kid, words like autism and trans didn't exist, and I like it back when I was a kid. I don't want to try to have to think about these new things. I don't like this new world. This new world is scary. It's not like the way it was when I was younger, and that's where a lot of that comes from. And there are people in positions of power who are aware of that and who are benefiting off of that. And that is the reason why America is the way it is today. And I talked about it on a previous podcast episode. It was the Human Show. I think that was episode 15. But to kind of elaborate, and we have, video now. Again, breaking the fourth wall. We have video now. So I'm going to kind of bring this back up and unpack this. Have y'all heard of the dead internet theory? So people who don't or haven't heard of the dead internet theory, to kind of break it down, it's this concept that asserts that the internet consists primarily of bot activity and automated content that's manipulating algorithmic curation. Now, if you go back to 2016, the security firm Imperva released a report on bot traffic after examining about 16.7 billion visits to 100,000 randomly selected domains, .com websites. And they found that automated programs were responsible for 52% of web traffic. And that was 10 years ago. 52% of the web traffic was bots 10 years ago. Now, fast forward to late 2022, and with the release of ChatGPT and AI chatbots by OpenAI to the general public, this led journalists to call the dead internet theory as potentially being more realistic before, because basically ChatGPT gave the average internet user access to these large language models where you can create these bots and different things if you know your way around these language models. And as I mentioned, going back to the Human Show specifically, I talked about how in 2018, there were allegations from Chris Wiley, who was a former research director at Cambridge Analytica, that had kind of broke the news that Steve Bannon was deeply involved in the company's early efforts to obtain and use Facebook data for political purposes. Now, Bannon helped launch Cambridge Analytica with financial backing from conservative billionaire Robert Mercer and his daughter, Rebecca Mercer. And the goal was to build a data-driven political operation capable of influencing American voters. The Facebook data came through an app created by the psychologist Alexander Kogan, and about 270,000 people installed this app. And under Facebook rules at the time, it could also obtain information about those users' Facebook friends. And ultimately, this app that started with 270,000 people were able to then reach out to their friends, and Cambridge Analytica was able to access data points on roughly 50 million people across America. How they engage on the internet, what gets them going, what are these buzzwords that get them going. And Wiley stated that the company tested themes such as immigration, drain the swamp, the deep state, and attitudes towards Vlad Putin, and some of these things basically became part of Trump's political messaging. It was like, hey, these are the things that get the people going. And when you say these things, you'll get people to be rallied up. And I think it is interesting because going back to the first time that Trump ran for president, there was a lot of us on the outside that was like, hey, there's a lot of racism and bigotry and coded language and a bunch of the dog whistles that administration over there is doing. And it's like, oh, this may be bad. And it was like, hey, you know what? That kind of MAGA kind of looks like a cult. That kind of looks like a cult that is growing. And then Trump did his first presidency, and he didn't fix the wall, or he didn't build the wall as he said he was going to do. He didn't make Mexico pay for it. The economy wasn't booming to the point of what he said it was going to be. And then we had fucking COVID and how he botched COVID. He did it. The vaccine did come under his presidency, but he had pushed anti-vaccine stuff for so long that then, you know, that became part of their base. So Trump couldn't even take, you know, credit for being this person that brought the vaccine and stopped millions of people dying. He had to separate himself from that because MAGA is anti-vaccine. And Trump ended up being a one and done president, and people were like, hey man, he's done. Biden came in, and then quite frankly, I have always argued that they continued to push a bunch of the information that they learned from Cambridge Analytica, and they figured out what the new batch of buzzwords were, and then they fed those to Trump's political messaging, and that's how he got reelected. And some of those buzzwords were no new wars. And some of those buzzwords were the Epstein files and releasing those. And some of those buzzwords were trans people and trans people participating in sports. And that's the reason why you have this bullshit with these former NBA players joining this grift and these people arguing about trans people joining the WNBA when, again, the WNBA has been around for 30 years and not a single trans person has ever participated in the sport or attempted to participate in the sport. And I even argued that on social media recently. And I was like, you know, name one transgender woman who has played in the WNBA. And the great majority of people that responded to that, they were like, oh, look at Brittany Griner. Brittany Griner, that's a trans person. That's actually a man. And you know that they're a man because look how they look and look how deep their voice is. And again, that goes back to the reason why an attack on the trans community is an attack on cis women, because then you put them in a box of a cis woman needs to look like this to be feminine. She needs to sound like this to be feminine. And because Brittany Griner doesn't fall into those categories, you now are essentially not attracted to Brittany Griner, so now you're labeling her as a man. And that's where transphobia eventually attacks cisgender women. Now, going back to, like I said, this whole Trump political messaging, they've kind of used Cambridge Analytica, and they have created this tool to see what themes get the people going. And quite frankly, I think that's the reason why Trump was able to win re-election. And yes, there are people who were three-time Trump voters, but there are some people who were in the middle and either didn't vote or switched their vote over to Trump because of these buzzwords and all this shit that he was saying leading up to the election. And then we have seen it since he has gotten in office. You have this whole flood the market strategy that they do, where every time there's some news story that hits the timeline, the conversation is quickly drowned out in the algorithm with a ton of conservative themes pushed into our algorithm. You know, you have grocery prices remaining higher than they were before the pandemic. But, oh, no, the actual problem is illegal immigrants. You know, look at this story of how they were eating cats and dogs out there in Springfield. And then you have ICE, who is murdering U.S. citizens. And no, the real problem is DEI and how these unqualified, black people are getting jobs because they're black, not because they're qualified. They're unintelligent. They shouldn't be in these positions of power. It must be DEI. Get mad about this. Or again, like I said, I'm going to release the Epstein files. But then again, Trump is in there more than anybody else. So then now the focus is on Trump putting his name on the Kennedy Center and all these federal buildings. And you know what? We're going to come out with a gold dollar coin that has Trump's face on it. And now we're no longer talking about the Epstein files. We're arguing about why is his name on all these things. Mr. No New Wars. That was one of the big things. There was all these signs that people had in their front yard that a vote for Kamala meant more wars and a vote for Trump means no new wars. And we didn't kidnap the Argentina president and people don't talk about that anymore. And they fucking bombed Nigeria on Christmas Day and don't nobody talk about that. And now we're in this infinite war with Iran, which in the end isn't giving freedom to America. It's helping Saudi Arabia and it's helping Israel be stronger in the Middle East. But we're not talking about these wars because, again, you parade these people out in Enos Cantor and Royce White and Sophie Cunningham to get the focus on trans women's ability to join the WNBA, which once again, in the 30 years of this league's existence, has never fucking happened. And I mentioned last week how they were like, oh, but this transgender woman that's in France. Yes, the transgender woman who is in France, who is dominating in their G League over there in France. They're not good enough as a basketball player to get up to the major league over there in France. So why would you think they would be able to play in the WNBA with this is the greatest women basketball players around the world? This is, again, a nothing burger. This is, again, us arguing and fighting about nothing. And it's a distraction from the decline of America because, again, they have the tools to figure out what gets us going based off of social media data, and they flood the algorithm and they flood the timelines. And as I have said, there is no longer journalism. Journalism is dead. It's all content creation. And even these news channels do it. Because why aren't the news channels talking more about this stuff? Because they're following what is getting the people going on the internet. Everything is content creation now and what drives the algorithm. And the algorithm is very much so conservative and right-wing based nowadays, because that's what gets the people going. Either they cheer for it and you have a bunch of these conservatives who don't realize that a lot of these people who are agreeing with them are actually bots. And the same thing with us on the progressive side. We'll say something, we get to arguing with people that we don't realize is actual bots. You don't know how many times that I used to fall victim of this and accidentally boost things I didn't realize were bots. But nowadays, what I tend to do is I'll click on the profile, especially on Twitter, and it'll be interesting that this person has all these replies to all these various things based off of certain liberal topics, but this person has actually not tweeted. Or the last time this person tweeted was in 2017. It's almost as if whoever originally owned that account stopped using it, and then some hacker was able to then hack into this unused Twitter account and then hook it up to a bot that looks for certain keywords and says certain things. And then we fall for it because then we argue with them. And then it's AI behind the scene that's reading what we're saying and then it's responding based off of that. One of the things, if you can't stop yourself from responding, one of the things that I have done is I have this Russell Westbrook gif of him yawning. And so when someone, hops in my messages and they, get to saying some shit to try to get me going so I can get to arguing with them, I'll just respond with that yawning gif. And a lot of times they don't respond because chances are they are an AI robot and they're based off of when this person says that, you trigger and say this. They're not built or designed just yet to be able to respond off of GIFs. And so if you're arguing with someone back and forth and no matter what you say, they're hitting you with this and that counterpoint, if you respond simply with an image or a GIF, and if they stop responding, it's because it's the AI bot that's no longer responding with your words. And there are people who have these AI bot farms, and they're making tons of fucking money off these blue check marks on Twitter and pushing the algorithm in a certain way. And we keep wanting to do the right thing, and we keep falling for it. Yeah. Now, as I said, you know, with this whole thing, with this conservative movement, there's a lot of money into it. And a lot of the actual real people who they end up parading out there to the front always tend to be mediocre minorities, like the conservative women of Riley Gaines and Sophie Cunningham, as well as Royce White's coon ass and Enos Cantor's Turkish coon ass. You know, it's no surprise that all of these people in positions of power in the Trump administration who have been fired from their position have all been women. They take all these minorities, be it, you know, actual, you know, ethnic minorities or women, and they put them in the forefront to take the bullets for the Trump administration, and people just keep falling for it. And meanwhile, you know, Americans continue to either vote against their best interests because they thought the racism and bigotry would never impact them, or some who call themselves progressive, you know, withheld their vote because ceasefire was not enough. And then you have a bunch of people refusing to vote Democratic ever again because so many Democrats won't denounce Israel and they won't stop taking money from AIPAC. And therefore, a lot of Democrats are no longer energized to vote, which then opens up the door for these conservatives to continue to win. And then finally, you have a third of the country who is of legal voting age, but they refuse to vote because both sides look the exact same to them. And some people find themselves living in a privileged position and then therefore decide that voting is not important because it doesn't impact them. And again, as I always say, if you are in a position where every election cycle, your rights aren't on the voting board, it's because you're living a privileged lifestyle. But if you're a woman, you should probably get out and vote because they're trying to convict you of murder if you want to abort, you know, your fetus. And it's only a matter of time before it'll be illegal for a woman to own a bank account and try to file for divorce like it was back in the day when a lot of these motherfuckers, a lot of these baby boomers and silent generation, that was the world that they grew up in, that they want things to go back to. And again, minorities, shit, the fact that we are quote unquote not slaves anymore is due to the 14th Amendment. Even though, again, as we argue, they just opened up slavery for everyone with these private prisons. In America, this American train of white Christian nationalism, which is in the late stages of capitalism, just keeps marching forward and marching towards its inevitable decline. Because as the research tells us, typical civilizations who are kind of running shit, those civilizations tend to only last for about 250 years before they start to decline. You know, we could look back to the Romans and the Greeks and, I mean, even the Egyptians, of course, you know, they ran things for, you know, thousands of fucking years, but they inevitably fell apart too. And quite frankly, with the way things are going in America and people putting their hatred towards people who look and they're putting their hatred towards people who don't look like them and don't think like them and don't vote like them and don't, you know, believe in the same God as them. They're willing to, you know, continue a fight with each other as opposed to vote for what is best for all of us. And the people in power are aware of that. And they're just shrinking the middle class. So eventually we will look like one of these dystopian futures that we see in these movies like The Long Walk and Hunger Games and 1984 and all of this shit. So I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, this has been a podcast about nothing. Until next time.
I do not look good. I have not been on my grind. I wish a bitch would not, please. I don't talk to my parents and my landlord is a Nazi. I'm loaded like the dice, still I bet I'm about to Yahtzee. I need one valid reason not to end it all. Chemicals. That's a good point. to piggyback, where are my edibles? Mommy's medicine, I'm a congenital. Bitch, I'm sick of myself, I'm sicker than hell it goes. Mic check, think I need a factory reset. Been swinging for the fences, recess. Waiting outside with the rejects, but no one's coming to pick me up. Mic check, think I got a decked up preset. I'm feeling myself start to regress. All I wanna be is decent, yeah, I need to pick me up. I'm an anxious, avoidant, attention whore, but I'll be so cringe before I'll ever be boring. I'll be so fringe, I'll be so unimportant. I'm so unimportant, I hate my old wardrobe, but my body more so. I need the type of therapy you gotta pay for out of pocket. I'm never in my bag, I'm in that pocket. Certain I've got toxins causing my brain to rot and my life to be so exhausting. Meanwhile, I turn my throat to an exhaust pipe. Meanwhile, I take the bait, I rage until I'm cross-eyed. Meanwhile, I'm gagging on an apple like I'm hog-tied. I'm boiling in a deep fryer, trying to win a cockfight. Shut the fuck up, bitch, I'll win that shit too. Top off this 10-piece like cock-doodle-doo. Flip off my enemies like, what's it to you? They all say it's the end, not with that attitude. Mic check, think I need a factory reset. Been swinging for the fences, recess. Waiting outside with the rejects, but no one's coming to pick me up. Mic check, think I got a decked up preset. I'm feeling myself start to regress. All I wanna be is decent, yeah, I need to pick me up. Yeah, I got a pickup line. It's the pickup my clip to my lapel. And we're live. Sir, are you aware that you just crossed a picket line? One Ben Frank, I might just keep this from going live. Bitch, I still do it for the vine. I do it for the personal essay I'm about to write. I do it cause my personality is bad vibes. I don't like myself and I don't like you either. Cypher with all of myselves, I'm the preacher in the choir. For Christ's sake, every single one of you sounds tired. Take 5, the fire on your ass, get fired. Whatever goofy motherfucker's gassing you is lying. No, I'm not doing well, I'm not looking good. If I'm just being honest, I got one foot in the grave and I got one in the comments. I got a devil on my shoulder and my details and my commas singing. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. 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 You better run me mine. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. 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 Mic check, think I need a factory reset. Been swinging for the fences, recess. Waiting outside with the rejects, but no one's going to pick me up. Mic check, think I got a decked up reset. Been feeling myself start to regress. All I wanna be is decent, yeah, I need to pick me up.
So, my ex-wife and the mother of my kids sent me a follow request out of nowhere on Instagram, and I went ahead and accepted it, and I sent her a follow request back, and she left mine on pending. What that mean?